Friendship with God. An uncommon dialogue. 14. I never met anyone more joyful than Terry Cole Whitaker. With a smile that could knock your eyes out, a wondrous, eruptive, liberated laughter that was utterly infectious, and an unparalleled ability to touch people deeply with her understandings of the human condition. This sensational woman took Southern California by storm in the early 1980s with a brand of optimistic spirituality that brought hundreds of thousands back into happy relationship with themselves and with God. I first heard about Terry when I lived in Escondido and worked for Dr. Kubler-Ross at Shanti Nilaya. I've never been more occupationally fulfilled, and close contact with a person of such compassion and spiritual wisdom brought me back to a place I had not been in years, a place of yearning to have a personal relationship with God, to know God in my life as a direct experience. I hadn't gone to church since my 20s when, for the second time in my life, I'd almost become a member of the clergy. Missing out on the priesthood in my teens, I cycled back to my desire to minister when I continued my theological investigations in the years after I left Milwaukee at 19. In searching for a God of whom I did not have to be afraid, I abandoned Roman Catholicism for good after turning 20. I began scouring books on theology and made visits to a number of churches and synagogues in and Arundel County, finally settling on the First Presbyterian Church in Annapolis as the place I would attend. Almost immediately, I joined the choir, and within a year I'd become a lay reader in the church. As I stood at the lectern on Sundays and read the weak scriptural passages, I became aware once more of my childhood longing to spend my life in close relationship with God, teaching all the world of His love. Presbyterians did not seem to be nearly as fear-based in their faith as Catholics. There were far fewer rules, rituals, and, therefore, pitfalls, so I had a much higher comfort level with their theology. I became so comfortable, in fact, that I began to put some real passion into my Sunday morning Bible readings, so much so that the congregation began to look forward to my turn in the rotation. This became apparent not only to me, but to the leadership of the church as well, and it was not long before I was brought in for a chat with the pastor, one of the nicest people I've ever known. "Tell me," the Reverend Winslow Shaw asked after pleasantries had been exchanged, "have you ever thought of entering the ministry?" "I sure have," I replied. I thought for certain that I was going to enter the seminary and become a priest when I was 13, but that didn't happen. "Why not?" "My dad stopped it. He said that I wasn't old enough to decide." "Do you think you are old enough now?" For some reason at that point I almost broke down and cried. "I was always old enough," I whispered, and worked to gather my composure. "Why are you not still in the Catholic Church, then?" Reverend Shaw asked gently. "I had some problems with its theology." "I see." We sat quietly for a moment. "How do you feel about Presbyterian theology?" the minister asked at last. "Comfortable." "It would seem so. We've had a few people around here comment on your scripture readings. You seem to get quite a bit of meaning out of them." "Well, there's quite a bit of meaning in them." Reverend Shaw smiled. "I agree," he said, then looked at me intently. "May I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Why haven't you pursued your obvious love of theology?" You're able, now, to make your own decisions. What's kept you out of the clergy? Some clergy, somewhere. Surely you could find a spiritual home. It isn't as simple as finding a home. There's also the challenge of finding the money. I'm in the middle of a career, with a wife and 2 small children. It would take a miracle at this stage to find a way to just drop everything and take this up. Reverend Shaw smiled again. Our church has a program through which, if we identify a member of our congregation we think is particularly promising, we sponsor that person in studies at seminary. Usually Princeton. My heart jumped. You mean you give them the money to attend? Well, it's a loan, of course. There's a commitment to come back here and serve for a few years as an associate to the pastor. You could work with a youth ministry, or a street ministry. Or whatever your personal interest is, in addition to offering spiritual counseling, providing leadership in the Sunday school programs, and, of course, spelling the pastor in the pulpit now and then. I think that's something you could handle. It was my turn to be silent. My mind was spinning. How does that sound to you? It sounds fantastic. Are you offering it to me? I think the presbytery seems ready to do that, yes. They're certainly ready to explore it. They'd want to talk with you personally, of course. Of course. Why don't you go home and think about it? Talk to your wife about it. And pray on it. I did just that. My wife was totally supportive. I think it would be wonderful. She said, beaming. Our second child had been born 21 months after the first. The 2 girls were barely toddlers. What would we live on? I asked. I mean, this is just tuition they're talking about. I could get back into physical therapy, my wife offered. I'm sure I'd find something. Everything would work out. You mean you'd support us while I went back to school? She touched my arm. I know this is something you've always wanted, she said softly. I don't deserve the people who have come into my life. I certainly didn't deserve my first wife, one of the kindest human beings I have ever met. But I didn't do it. I couldn't. Everything was in place, everything was perfect, except the theology. In the end, it was the theology that stopped me. I'd done as Reverend Shaw suggested. I'd prayed about it. And the more I prayed, the more I realized that I could not preach, no matter how quietly, a sermon about natural-born sinners and the need for salvation. From the earliest days of my youth I'd had trouble seeing people as bad. Oh, I knew that people did bad things. I could see it all around me as I grew up. But even as a teenager, and then a young man, I held to a stubbornly positive understanding of human nature at its basis. It seemed to me that all people were good, and that some of them did bad things for reasons having to do with their upbringing, their lack of understanding or opportunities, their desperation and their anger, or, in some cases, just plain laziness, but not because of any inherent evilness. The story of Adam and Eve made no sense to me, not even as an allegory, and I knew that I couldn't teach it. Nor could I ever teach a theology of exclusion, no matter how benign, because something deep inside my soul caused me to know. From the time I was small, that all people were my brother and sisters, and that no one and no thing was ugly or unacceptable in the sight of God. Least of all, I grew certain as I grew older, for having committed the sin of adopting the wrong theology. If this was not true, then everything that I knew intuitively at the deepest part of my being was false. I could not accept that. But I didn't know what to accept. The opportunity to enter the Christian ministry, very real and very present for the second time in my life, threw me into spiritual crisis. I so earnestly wanted to do God's work in the world, and yet I couldn't accept that God's work was to teach a gospel of division, and a theology of punishment for the divided. I begged God for clarity, not simply on whether I should enter the ministry, but on the largest questions surrounding the relationship of human beings to deity. I received insights on neither. Then I abandoned both. Now, as I approached 40, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was bringing me back to God. Over and over she spoke of a God of unconditional love, who would never judge, but would only accept us just as we were. If only people could understand this, I thought, and apply the same truth in their lives, the problems and the cruelties and the tragedies of the world would evaporate. God does not say, "I love you if." Elizabeth insisted, and thus took the fear out of dying for millions of people the world over. Now this was a God I could believe in. This was the God of my heart, of my childhood's deepest inner knowing. I wanted more of this God, so I decided to go back to church. Maybe I'd been looking in the wrong place. In the wrong way. I went to a Lutheran church, then to the Methodists. I tried the Baptists and the Congregationalists. But I was right back in fear-based theology. I ran out. I explored Judaism, Buddhism, every other ism I could find. Nothing seemed to fit. Then I heard about Terry Cole Whitaker, and her church in San Diego. A housewife in the vapid California suburbs of the 60s, Terry, too, had yearned for an outward experience of the spiritual connection she felt deep in her heart. Her own search led her to stumble on something called the United Church of Religious Science. She fell in love with it, and throwing everything to the wind, she began formal religious studies. Eventually, she became ordained and received a letter of call from a struggling congregation of less than 50 people in La Jolla, California. Then she had to choose between her dream and her marriage. Her husband did not fully support her sudden transformation, and he certainly was not okay with leaving his own good job and moving the family to a new community. So Terry left the marriage. And within 3 years she turned the La Jolla Church of Religious Science into one of the largest in the denomination. Over 1,000 people were coming to hear her at 2 services each Sunday morning, and the throng was growing. Word of this spiritual phenomenon spread quickly throughout Southern California, even to Escondido, a very conservative, traditional wine-growing and farming community to the north of San Diego. I went down to check it out. Terry's congregation had grown so large that she'd had to move her services into a rented movie theater. A celebration of life with Terry Cole Whitaker, the marquee read, and as I approached, I thought, "Oh, brother, what's this?" Ushers handed out carnations to everyone as they filed in, and greeted each person as if they'd known them for a lifetime. "Hello, how are you? It's so great to have you here." I didn't know what to make of it. I'd been greeted nicely at churches before, of course, but never quite so effusively. There was an energy in the space that felt enlivening. Inside, the moving, rousing theme from Chariots of Fire was playing. An air of expectancy filled the theater. People were chattering and laughing. Finally, the house lights went down and a man and woman appeared on the stage, the man taking a seat at one side and the woman at the other. "Now is the time to become quiet, to go within," the man said into a microphone. A choir in the back of the room softly sang an invocation about peace, and the service began. I'd never experienced anything quite like this. It certainly wasn't what I'd anticipated, and I was feeling a bit out of place, but I decided to hang in there. After a few opening announcements, Terry Cole Whitaker stepped to the center of the stage behind a see-through plexiglass podium, and chirped, "Good morning." Her smile was radiant, her cheerfulness contagious. If you came here this morning expecting to find something that looks like a church, or feels like a church, or sounds like a church, you came to the wrong place. She was certainly right about that. The audience laughed its agreement. But if you came here this morning hoping to find God, notice that God arrived the moment you walked through the door. That was it. I was hooked. Even if I didn't know exactly what she was driving at yet, anyone who had imagination and courage enough to open a Sunday service with a line like that had my attention. It was the beginning of a nearly 3-year relationship. As with the first time I met Elizabeth, I was captivated by Terry Cole Whitaker and her work within 10 minutes. As I did with Elizabeth, I made that clear very quickly by volunteering my enthusiastic assistance. And as with Elizabeth, I was on staff with Terry's organization very soon, accepting a position in the ministry's outreach department, writing newsletters, creating the weekly church bulletin, etc. It just happened that I was out of work within a few weeks of crossing paths with Terry. Elizabeth fired me. Well, fired seems like a harsh term. She let me go. It wasn't in anger, it was just time for me to move on, and Elizabeth knew it. She said simply, "It is time for you to go. I give you 3 days." I was flabbergasted. But why? What have I done? It is not what you have done. It is what you will not do if you stay here. You will not realize your full potential. You cannot possibly do so, standing in my shadow. Get out. Now. Before it is too late. But I don't want to leave, I pleaded. You have played in my backyard long enough, Elizabeth said matter-of-factly. I give you a little kick. Like the bird from its nest. It is time for you to fly. And that was that. I moved to San Diego and got back into the commercial public relations and marketing game, starting my own firm called The Group. There was no group actually, there was only me. But I wanted it to sound like something of substance. And I acquired quite a few clients within the next few months, including a man running for Congress as an independent candidate whose name did not even appear on the ballot. Ron Packard was the former mayor of Carlsbad, California, and became the first man to win a seat in Congress on a write-in vote in this century, and I helped him do that. But, with the stunning Packard victory the notable exception, my days in marketing and advertising once again proved vacuous. After working with Elizabeth, helping someone sell weekend hotel stays, restaurant food, or home remodeling was singularly and predictably unsatisfying. I was going crazy again. I had to find some way to return meaning to my life. I poured all of my energy into volunteering at Terry's church. I spent days, evenings, weekends in church work, letting my business, forgive me, I can't resist this, go to hell. My energy, enthusiasm, and creativity quickly brought an offer of full-time employment as Director of Outreach. That's Church SA for Public Relations and Marketing. Terry left her denomination shortly after I'd gone to work for her, however, feeling, she told us, that formal religious affiliations were often limiting, confining, restrictive. She formed Terry Cole Whitaker Ministries, and her Sunday services were eventually televised in cities across the country, expanding her congregation to hundreds of thousands. As in my time with Elizabeth, my connection with Terry provided me with invaluable training. I learned much, not only about dealing with people, including those facing emotional and spiritual challenges, but also about nonprofit organizations and how they best function to meet human needs and send spiritual messages. I didn't know then how invaluable this experience would prove to be, although I should have guessed that my life was once again preparing me for my own future. I see now that I have been led to just the right people at just the right time, in order to continue my education. Like Elizabeth, Terry spoke of a God of unconditional love. She also spoke of the power of God, which she said resided within all of us. This included the power to create our own reality and to determine our own experience. As I've said in the introductions to all the Conversations with God books, some of the ideas in that trilogy are ideas I have been exposed to before. Many, including some of the most startling, are not. They are insights that I've never heard anywhere, never read anyplace, never before entertained, or even imagined. Yet, as CWG has made clear, my whole life has indeed been a teaching, and that is true for all of us. We have to pay attention. We have to keep our eyes and ears wide open. God is sending us messages all the time, having a conversation with us every moment of every day. God's messages are coming to us in a variety of ways, from a variety of sources, in endless profusion. In my life, Larry LaRue was one of those sources. Jay Jackson was one of those sources. Joe Alton was one of those sources. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was one of those sources. And Terry Cole Whitaker was one of those sources. My mother was one of those sources, too, as was my father. Each taught me life lessons, and brought me life wisdoms that have served me to this very day. Even after I threw out all the stuff that I got from them, and from other sources, which did not serve me, which did not resonate with me, and which did not feel like my inner truth, there was still plenty of treasure left. In fairness to Terry, who I am sure would want this stated for accuracy's sake, I need to point out that she long ago closed her ministry. She has since embarked on a different spiritual path, distant from traditional Judeo-Christian constructions, but distant, too, from the largest part of her own former message. I honor that decision by Terry, who has resolved to make her life a never-ending and courageous search for a spiritual reality with which her soul deeply resonates. I wish that all people would seek divine truth with such fervor. That is what Terry taught me above all else. She taught me to seek eternal truth with never-ending determination, no matter how it upsets the apple cart, no matter which of my former beliefs it overturns, no matter how much it might put off others. To this mission, I hope I have remained faithful. You have. Believe me, you have. I have some more questions on this business of joyfulness, however. Go ahead. Well, you said that the way to feel joyful is to cause another to feel joyful. That's right. So how do I feel joyful when there's no one else around? There's always a way to contribute to life, even when you are alone. Sometimes, especially when you are alone. For instance, you do your best writing when you are alone. Okay, but supposing you're not a writer. Supposing you're not an artist, or a poet, or a composer, or someone who creates in solitude. Supposing you're just a regular person, with a regular job, a homemaker, perhaps, or a dentist, and now all of a sudden, you're alone. Maybe you're a retired priest, living in the retired priest's home, and your time of contributing to the lives of others seems over. Or actually, a retired anything. Retirement is often a time of depression for people, who sometimes feel their self-worth slipping, their usefulness reduced, and themselves abandoned. And it isn't just people in retirement. There are others. People who are ill, who are shut in, who for many reasons do not, and cannot, have much of a sense of life beyond themselves. Then there are the ordinary, everyday folks who do just fine when they are active and with other people, because they do as you say, they bring joy to others. But even they have times when they are by themselves, alone with their thoughts, with no one else around and no obvious way to bring joy to others. I guess what I'm asking is, how do you find joy inside yourself? Isn't this idea of finding joy by bringing joy to others a little dangerous? Isn't it a bit of a trap? Couldn't it lead to the creation of little martyrs, people who feel that the only way they can deserve happiness is to make others happy? Those are good questions. Those are very good observations, and good questions. Thank you. So what are the answers? First, let's clarify something. There is no time that you are ever alone. I am always with you, and you are always with me. That's number one. And it's an important place to begin, because it changes everything. If you think you are really alone, it could be devastating. Just the thought of total aloneness itself, without anything else going on, could be devastating. That's because the very nature of the soul is unity and oneness with all that is, and if it appears that there is nothing and no one else, then an individual could feel just that, individual, and not one with anything else at all. And that would be devastating, because it violates your deepest sense of who you are. So it is important to understand that, in fact, you are never alone, and that aloneness is impossible. People who have been prisoners of war in solitary confinement, or shut-ins who've suffered debilitating strokes and are trapped in their own minds, might disagree with you. I know I'm using extreme examples, but I'm saying that there are cases when aloneness would very much be possible. You can create the illusion of aloneness, yet the experience of something does not make it a reality. I am always with you, whether you know it or not. Yet if we don't know it, then you may as well not be with us, because the effect, for us, is the same. I agree. Therefore, to change the effect, know that I am with you always, even unto the end of time. How can I know this if I don't know it? Do you understand the question? Yes. And the answer is that it is possible for you to know, and yet not know that you know. Could you explain that further, please? In life, there appear to be those who do not know, and who do not know that they do not know. They are as children. Nurture them. Then there appear to be those who do not know, and who know that they do not know. They are willing. Teach them. Then there appear to be those who do not know, but who think that they know. They are dangerous. Avoid them. Then there appear to be those who know, but who do not know that they know. They are asleep. Wake them. Then there appear to be those who know, but who pretend that they do not know. They are actors. Enjoy them. Then there appear to be those who know, and who know that they know. Do not follow them. For if they know that they know, they would not have you follow them. Yet listen very carefully to what they have to say, for they will remind you of what you know. Indeed, that is why they have been sent to you. That is why you have called them to you. If a person knows, why would he pretend that he does not know? Who would do that? Nearly everybody. At one time or another, nearly everybody. But why? Because you all love the drama so much. You have created an entire world of your illusion, a kingdom in which you can reign, and you have become the drama king and the drama queen. Why would I want the drama, rather than an end to the drama? Because it is in the deliciousness of the drama that you get to play out, at the highest level and with the greatest intensity, all the various versions of who you are, and may then select who you choose to be. Because it is juicy. You're kidding. Isn't there an easier way? Of course there is. And you will ultimately choose that, the moment you realize that all the drama isn't necessary. Yet sometimes you will continue to use drama, to remind yourself, and to instruct others. All wisdom teachers do this. What are they reminding and instructing about? The illusion. They are reminding themselves and instructing others that all of life is an illusion, that it has a purpose, and that once you know its purpose, you can live within the illusion or outside of it, at will. You can choose to experience the illusion, and make it real, or you can choose to experience ultimate reality, in any given moment. How can I experience ultimate reality in any particular moment? Be still, and know that I am God. I mean that literally. Be still. That is how you will know that I am God, and that I am always with you. That is how you will know that you are one with me. That is how you will meet the Creator inside of you. If you have come to know me, to trust me, to love me, and to embrace me, if you have taken the steps to having a friendship with God, then you will never doubt that I am with you always, and always. So, as I have said before, embrace me. Spend a few moments each day embracing your experience of me. Do this now, when you do not have to, when life circumstances do not seem to require you to. Now, when it seems that you do not even have time to. Now, when you are not feeling alone. So that when you are alone, you will know that you are not. Cultivate the habit of joining me in divine connection once each day. I have already given you directions on one way that you may do this. There are other ways. Many ways. God is not limited, and neither are the ways to reach God. Once you have truly embraced God, once you have made that divine connection, you will never want to lose it, for it will bring you the greatest joy you ever had. This joy is what I am, and what you are. It is life itself, expressing at the highest vibration. It is superconsciousness. It is at this level of vibration that creation occurs. You might even say it's the creation vibration. Yes, it is. That is it, exactly. But I thought that joy was something that you could only feel when you were giving it away. How can you feel this joy if you are simply being alone with yourself, connecting only with the God within? Only. Did you say only? I tell you, you are connecting with all that is. You are not being alone with yourself, and you never can be. It is not possible. And when you actually feel your eternal connection with the God within, you are giving away joy. You are giving it to me. For my joy is to be one with you, and my greatest joy is for you to know it. So I bring joy to you when I let you bring joy to me. Has there ever been a more perfect description of love? No. And is love not what God is, what we are? Yes. Good. Very good. You are putting it all together now. You are getting it. You are preparing again, as you have been doing during so much of your life. You are a messenger. You, and many others like you, who are coming to these same understandings with you, some through this dialogue, some in ways uniquely their own, all toward the same end, to no longer be a seeker, but a bringer, of the light. Soon, you will all speak with one voice. The role of messenger is given to everyone, in truth. You all send a message to the world about life and how it is, and about God. What is the message you have been sending? What is the message you now choose to send? Is it time for a new gospel? Yes. Yes, it is. But I sometimes feel so alone in this. Even as I accept the truth that I am never really alone, I wonder, how does that change things when I feel alone? If I am feeling all alone, and I am not feeling very much joy, what do I do? What you can do if you are imagining that you are alone is to come to me. Come to me in the depths of your soul. Talk to me from your heart. Companion with me in your mind. I will be with you, and you will know it. If you have been making daily contact with me, this will be easier. Yet even if you have not, I will not fail you, but be with you the moment you call to me. For this is my promise, even before you call my name, I will be there. That is because I am always there, and your very decision to call my name merely elevates your awareness of me. Once you are aware of me, your sadness will leave you. For sadness and God cannot exist in the same place, because God is life energy, turned up as high as it will go, and sadness is life energy turned down. Therefore, when I come to you, do not turn me down. Oh, wow, that's amazing. There you go again, putting things in amazing ways so that we can get them. But I don't think people do that, do they? I don't think people actually turn you down. Every time you have a hunch about something and ignore it, you turn me down. Every time you receive an offer to put an end to bad feelings, or cease a conflict, and ignore it, you turn me down. Every time you do not return the smile of a stranger, walk under the awesome wonder of a night sky and don't look up, pass a flower bed without stopping to behold its beauty, you turn me down. Every time you hear my voice, or feel the presence of a departed loved one, and say it's just your imagination, you turn me down. Every time you feel love for another in your soul, or feel a song in your heart, or see a grand vision in your mind, and do nothing about it, you turn me down. Every time you find yourself reading just the right book, or hearing just the right sermon, or watching just the right movie, or running into just the right friend, at just the right time in your life, and write it off to coincidence or serendipity or luck, you turn me down. And I tell you this, before the cock crows 3 times, some of you will deny me. Not me. I will never deny you again, nor will I ever turn you down when you invite me to experience communion with you. That invitation is continual and everlasting, and more humans are feeling this life energy at full force, and not turning it down. You are letting the force be with you. And that is good. That is very good. For as you move into the next millennium, you will plant the seeds of the greatest growth the world has ever seen. You have grown in your science and in your technologies, yet now you will grow in your consciousness. And this will be the greatest growth of all, making all the rest of your advances look insignificant by comparison. The 21st century will be the time of awakening, of meeting the Creator within. Many beings will experience oneness with God and with all of life. This will be the beginning of the golden age of the new human, of which it has been written, the time of the universal human, which has been eloquently described by those with deep insight among you. There are many such people in the world now, teachers and messengers, masters and visionaries, who are placing this vision before humankind and offering tools with which to create it. These messengers and visionaries are the heralds of a new age. You may choose to be one of them. You, to whom this message is now being sent. You, who are reading this right now. Many are called, but few choose themselves. What is your choice? Shall we speak now with one voice? To say the same thing, we must all know the same thing. Yet you have just said that there are those who do not know. I'm confused. I did not say that there are those who do not know. I said there appear to be those who do not know. Yet, judge not by appearances. All of you know everything. No one is sent into this life without the knowing. That is because you are the knowing. The knowing is what you are. Yet you have forgotten who and what you are in order that you might create it again. This is the process of recreation of which we have spoken now many times. Book 1 of the Conversations with God trilogy explains this all in wonderful detail, as you are aware. And so it appears that you do not know. In wholly accurate terms, it would be said that you do not remember. There are those who do not remember, and they do not remember that they've not remembered. There are those who do not remember, but they remember that they're not remembering. There are those who do not remember, but think they have remembered. There are those who remember, but do not remember that they've remembered. There are those who remember, but pretend that they have not remembered. And there are those who remember, and remember that they've remembered. Those who have fully remembered have become a member once again of the body of God.